The air was thick with mist, curling around the winding mountain road like a silent whisper of danger. Leaves, amber and russet, danced on the breeze and scattered across the tarmac. It was the kind of morning that felt heavy with something unspoken, like nature itself was holding its breath. Daniel Hart had driven these roads countless times. He was used to the isolation of the highlands, the solitude of long drives between small villages where he repaired heating systems and old fireplaces. But today, something gnawed at his instincts, a low, throbbing unease that crept in with the cold. He was just rounding the bend when he saw it. The SUV, large and black, was skewed halfway over the edge of a cliff. One rear tire clung to the last stretch of land, the front wheel suspended in open air. Its back door was flung wide open, the interior lights flickering uselessly against the grey morning. The silence was screaming. Daniel slammed on the brakes. He leapt from his van, his boots crunching on the wet gravel as he ran towards the scene. The vehicle groaned, a creak from the suspension as it shifted under its own weight. That car could go over at any moment. Then he saw her. A young woman, early 20s, blonde hair matted with blood, lay crumpled near the front, just a few meters from the cliff's drop. Her eyes were half open, glazed, her lips murmuring something inaudible. She was alive. Barely. Daniel didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees beside her, checking for movement, for injuries, for signs of life. Her leg was gashed badly, and there was a wound near her temple. But she was breathing. "Stay with me," he said, his voice steady. "You're all right now. I've got you." She blinked, her mouth twitching as if trying to form words. Her hand trembled as she reached out, gripping his shirt with surprising strength. Behind them, the SUV groaned again, louder this time. The cliff was giving way. Daniel scooped her into his arms, the way he'd once lifted his little sister when she'd fallen asleep in the living room as a child. The woman weighed little, but every step felt heavy with consequence. His boots skidded slightly as he moved away from the cliff, the edge crumbling behind him with a brittle snap. Seconds after he cleared the danger, the SUV gave one last shriek, and tumbled. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the valley as the car plummeted down the cliffside, crashing into trees and rocks before vanishing into the fog below. The silence that followed was deafening. But she was safe. He sat down on the wet ground, still holding her, his heart pounding like a war drum. Her head rested on his shoulder, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. They just breathed. Her name was Lila. She woke up later in hospital, the drip in her arm and a nurse gently dabbing the wound on her forehead. When Daniel came to check on her, she looked at him with dazed wonder, like someone who had just woken from a dream. "You saved me," she whispered. He gave a half smile. "Just lucky I was nearby." But it wasn't luck, not really. Lila had taken that road for a reason. She'd been escaping. A fight, a disappointment, a heartbreak that had shattered her life. She was driving nowhere in particular, just away. Daniel, too, had his own shadows. His younger brother had died in a car accident years ago, on a road not unlike the one Lila had crashed on. He'd carried the guilt for a decade, punishing himself with silence and isolation. But saving Lila had cracked something open in him. A wound he'd never let heal. Recovery was slow. Lila stayed in the village for several weeks. Daniel would visit, bringing books and soup, and stories from the highlands that made her laugh. She asked about his past once, and he hesitated, but then told her everything. His brother, the crash, the guilt. She listened, not with pity but with understanding. They were both survivors, not just of accidents, but of grief. And sometimes, when they sat quietly in the fading light of a Scottish sunset, it felt like the world was piecing them back together. One day, Lila stood at the very cliff where her car had fallen. The mist had cleared, and the valley stretched below like a painting. She turned to Daniel, her voice firm. "I want to do something with my life now. Something that matters." He smiled. "You already are." That winter, Lila started a blog, sharing her story. It went viral. Emails flooded in from others who had survived trauma, who felt seen by her words. Daniel helped her build a small podcast studio in the village. They called it Hedge of the Fall. They didn't talk about love, not at first. But it was there. In the shared silences. In the way she always made extra tea for him. In the way he always parked just outside her cottage, in case she needed anything. They had both fallen, Lila off a cliff, Daniel into grief, but they had found something on the way down, strength, and each other. Years later, when Lila stood on stage at a conference for trauma survivors, she told the story again. But this time, she didn't cry. I thought falling was the end, she said, her voice echoing through the hall. But sometimes, the fall isn't what breaks us. It's what teaches us how to fly. And in the front row, Daniel smiled.